if you can look at your reality and you use 1,000% responsibility, and you say, everything in my reality is generated from what I believe is factual, then circumstances no longer become something you can't figure out. You can actually understand that it's built on the foundation of what you believe is fact.
Think of how many people are super stuck with facts. Welcome back to Brokers of Secrets. This is episode 6. Now, a lot of you have wondered, what is a mental program? A lot of you have asked us, hey, why do you guys call yourself mental programmers? And why is Upgrade a mental programming company? What does that even mean? Now, today, we're actually going to break down what a mental program is so that you can understand why a mental program is what's driving your life and why this mental program is so crucial for you to not only understand, but know how you can change it. And because your reality is basically formed by this mental program or programs, we really do need to understand, unless you're not interested in optimizing your reality. So now I brought a special guest today. His name is Ken. He is one of the guys that I would say he's the guy we send in when there's someone who is wanting to build an 8, 9, 10, 11-digit business and they want to really optimize their mental programs so that they are ready for that level of expansion, that level of success, and that level of excellence. And I brought Ken here because we are releasing a new curriculum inside of our trainings. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here because I just thought, hey, this is a perfect opportunity to have Ken, one of our very best mental programmers in the world, to come and share with you his perspective as he worked with some of these really successful individuals on their mental programs, some stories, some cool things that may benefit you greatly. And you'll see, it's the patterns that he's going to share with you that will be life-changing. It's a game changer when you understand these patterns and see how you can apply them. So, and there's a lot more to be said about Ken. And as we go along the episode, I may brag about him throughout. He's definitely an excellent individual that you want to hear from, but also to explain what a mental program is. So I look forward to sharing this episode with you, Ken. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for the introduction.
Yeah,
Super
absolutely.
kind. I'm glad to be here. Definitely been awesome working with you and on this project of Upgrade, which is
Likewise, yeah.
huge movement happening right now. Now, I'll tell a little bit about my background as well.
Please do.
Before I talk about mental programs, I think it is good to understand the context of things that I've learned throughout life and the journey that I've gone through, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 10 years ago, I started on as a teacher teaching foreign languages at a huge institution. It had like 60,000 learners. And over time, I got promoted and I got put in a position where I was creating curriculum for these users. Now, the interesting thing was this was missionary work. And these missionaries were all being trained in the same facility. So in the context of research, it's like a prime area to do research because there's so many variables controlled. They eat the same food, they sleep in the same schedule, they wear the same clothes, the teachers are all similar, the curriculum's all the same. And what was happening is there were some of these missionaries, these students, that were learning a foreign language, and they were there for 6 weeks or 9 weeks learning. They're learning quickly. And what would happen is some of them would progress faster than others. So you ask the question from research and you say, how's it possible that they have everything the same, but some are doing better than others, right?
And these are brand new languages to these individuals. They don't have backgrounds.
Brand new. They don't have backgrounds to these languages. I mean, they're learning Albanian. Who's going to be learning Albanian, you know? Like they're learning all kinds of languages. There were 60 different languages taught there. So yeah, they had no background. Some, maybe Spanish, there were some, but we put them in different classes. If they had background, they were with different people that also had a background.
Mm.
So they would usually be straight beginners, and you just say, well, how are they progressing faster than others? And so this was a really key question that I wanted to answer. So I started diving into research, and I researched from these linguists how the model of their future can create influence in how they succeed in the now, in the present, which I thought was very interesting. And this all happened before you and I met. And then when we met and you told me about Upgrade and what you do, I said, I need to bring this to my job. I need people to know about this because there are subtle factors in the subconscious mind that govern the rate of your success.
The rate of your success.
Yes.
Ah, okay. Yeah. This is something you got to pay attention to. If you're listening, watching, the rate of success is being governed by a program. Most people don't think about this. Keep going, please.
So, and I noticed and I looked at these missionaries that were learning, and one of the major factors is the ones that were going slower than the other ones had anxiety.
Oh.
And so the anxiety around learning language caused them to not perform well. Then the ones that were going really fast had a really strong vision of the future that they would succeed quickly and learn fast. So the anxiety was actually the opposite envisioning. They had a projection of the future that was negative, saying that it would be challenging and difficult and slow. And so right there, I started understanding that most of success is governed by your mind.
You know, that brings up a very important point. How many of us in the world who are entrepreneurs, business leaders, or innovators, people who are making moves in different industries are being told, or were being told when we first started, it's going to be hard? And what kind of vision did that instill, right? And these people will say, backed by my experience, I know it's going to be hard, and you got to be willing to do hard things. Yeah. I wonder. Let's keep going.
Yeah, so with that picture in mind, that background, right? So I
Yeah.
spent years learning linguistics, learning research, learning how learners learn. And then you and I met, and I took some awesome trainings from you and took some other trainings in other locations as well. Learning what mental programming is, everything just kind of clicked when everything came together. And I realized this thing, a mental program, and here's the definition. A mental program is basically the things you hold in your mind as fact. Yeah, things like my heart beats, that's a fact, right? My cells divide, that's a fact. My name is Ken, that's a fact, right? These are the mental programs. Now, I'm going to say a few for the audience, and for those of you that are listening, if you resonate with this, just know it actually doesn't have to be fact. So how about this? It's difficult to be successful. Some people resonate with that. Or success takes a lot of hard work, like what you were saying. Or if I'm successful, my family will abandon me. These are mental programs, and they're not beliefs. They're actually things that people believe is true, but it's not belief, it's fact.
It's
right?
so deep, they're not consciously aware that it's even a belief.
So let me explain this just a little, how it works.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to relate to this. One of the strongest and most important functions of your mind is to be correct. It's to be right. The reason being is not necessarily egoic. It's because it's generating reality for you. And it needs the fidelity of that reality to be presented to you. And so there are certain factors in your mind that if you see, it's like, oh, this is fact, then that is what your mind will have to make true because it needs to keep the fidelity. And actually, I was reading a book about PTSD. My mom, she's a marriage and family therapist, and she works with first responders that have had PTSD. And she lent me a book, and I was reading it. It was really fascinating because the basis and structure of PTSD is that there was an experience that they had that was so far out of the realm of what they believe is fact that they mentally have not made the connection between those two experiences. And it creates a problem in their now, in their reality, that they don't know how to cope with. Very fascinating stuff. So it is super important in your mind to have facts, things that the mind knows is absolutely true, because that's how it generates the reality that you see. Now, it becomes problematic when what you believe is true causes problems for you.
Listen to that again. Can you say that again for the audience?
Yeah, it becomes problematic when what you believe is true causes problems.
Interesting, right? When your idea, your facts about what reality is, or that your version of reality in your mind causes problems for you, that mental program is problematic. And how many of you are experiencing problems?
Yeah, it's pervasive. People don't even know. I mean, this is why it's brokers of secrets, right? Like,
Yeah.
where are you going to get this education?
It's true.
I didn't hear it.
A specific elementary school.
Yeah. In the future, right?
Yeah.
The upgrade elementary school. Send your kids there, right?
Yeah.
We'll
Man.
talk about it. Yeah. So when someone is able to take 1,000% responsibility for their circumstances, in the sense that I'll define responsibility this way, it is your ability to respond. It's in the word, right? I'm a linguist, so these are the things I think about.
Yeah.
It's right in the word. Whatever definition you're looking at in the dictionary, just look at the word. It's already defined. It's your ability to respond to your circumstances and still get the outcome you want.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
That's responsibility. People see it as duty. It's not duty. People see it as, oh, I have to do these things because if I don't, it will cause problems. That's not responsibility.
And people also lock down on only specific options of how they can respond. They're like, no, I'm forced to do this or that. There's no other option.
Exactly. Exactly. And so with responsibility, if you can look at your reality and you use 1,000% responsibility and you say, everything in my reality is generated from what I believe is factual, then circumstances no longer become something you can't figure out. You can actually understand that it's built on the foundation of what you believe is fact in reality.
Now the question becomes, how willing are you to change what you've always believed to be true, but not even know that you've believed it? You have accepted that as facts.
This is where it becomes paradoxical, because I like to tell people, you're finally right when you admit you're wrong. And this gives you the flexibility, though, to then look inside and say, maybe I haven't actually discovered what the kind of facts that I want to have that are absolutely true. Now, I'll tell you, the best kind of facts are the ones that align with universal law.
Hey, this is an opportunity for those of you ladies, let your husbands listen to this, your boyfriends listen to this episode, or vice versa, right? There's an opportunity to tell them that they are wrong.
Yeah.
Just kidding. However, it's worth considering that people who have thought they were right this whole time need to entertain the possibility that if you're not getting what you want, maybe you're wrong.
Yeah, my wife definitely liked it when I said, you know what, I'm wrong. She likes that. So that is a good call out. It's really the beginning of flexibility, though. Because here's the thing about those facts. They're flexible. You can change them. You can make them different.
Isn't that true?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it starts with saying, maybe the way I've structured reality is not helpful for me.
You know, that the more I learn about so-called reality, the more I realize it's not separate from me.
Mm-hmm.
And this illusion of separation between reality and ourself, that illusion is what causes people to think, oh, you know, circumstances or this. But really, our reality is exactly who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that level of responsibility, right, causes you to be able to think, well, I have trillions of options, how I can respond. And the more I learn about this, the more I realize I've been wrong in the past. And how many little things to big things I was wrong about. And then I realized, wow, I really don't know enough. I don't know much. So, the famous saying goes, the more you learn, the less you feel like you know, because you begin to expand the horizon of how much there is to know, right? And what's interesting is when people are really certain about their reality, I'm not talking about confidence, confidence to achieve and succeed and that, no, like it's paradoxical in a way. Like you can increase your level of confidence to succeed and excel, at the same time, increase flexibility, right? Increase that flexibility in a way that's like, oh, well, I could be wrong. There's a lot I don't know, right? Being less certain about certain models of reality allows us to be more flexible.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree with that. Yeah, it's the key. It's paradoxical in nature because it's like you want to have facts that generate your reality because it's part of the system. You have to have them. But you also need to be flexible enough to say at any point, I can change the facts. That's the key to accelerating growth and success.
Man, think of how many people are super stuck with facts, so-called the objective facts. What do you think of that?
I think there are some objective facts. For example, we have consciousness. I don't think that's one that we're capable of changing. I think it's part of the system built in.
I don't know. There are some NPCs out there.
Maybe so. But I have consciousness, and I don't know if I could change that, right? At least I know I do.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
So it is, there are some rules that I think govern, you could say, the reality we live in.
Yeah.
Right? But there's very few, very, very few. I think another universal law is that everything will accelerate and go a lot faster when you are focused on making your reality great, more abundant, more full of love, more full of joy, more full of gratitude. To me, that's also, I think, universal law.
Yeah, could we get even more specific? Because some of the listeners or people who are watching may not understand what it means to focus on that.
Yeah, so this is actually really fascinating. This will go back to the conversation about programs, because someone's ability to feel love and give love is based on the programs they have inside too. And so your emotions are, and I love it when people say, I need to control my emotions. I'm like, that's almost laughable. Emotions are 100% governed by the subconscious mind. 100%. Like you could generate an emotion, a state for a short time, and you could hold that state for a little bit. And it could be useful at times for sure. But the set of emotions that are automatic to you will just pop back up. So you have to know how to change at the subconscious level to be able to access those states better.
Yeah, it's like trying to get rid of the lights on a car dashboard when you didn't really fix the problem.
Yeah.
Right? One's got to fix the real problem for the engine lights to go off.
Exactly. So if someone wants to feel those emotions, they actually need to make some big changes on the inside.
Can you tell the audience what those big changes may be?
Oh, yeah, totally. So let me give an example, right?
Yeah, please.
Let's say most people are living their life wanting to prove that they're awesome.
Oh, that's one of the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. And that assumes that they are not awesome.
Yeah, listen carefully. If they're trying to prove something, that assumes they're not, which is a terrible assumption to have made about their reality, right?
So what's fact then? And if not being awesome is fact, then what is not awesome? They probably have a definition. Whatever that definition is what will show up in reality over and over.
And it's tied to their identity.
And they're always proving. Because
sounds exhausting and hard.
Yeah, because as long as they're proving, then they might be able to avoid loss. They might be able to avoid going broke. They might be able to avoid abandonment. Because that drive to prove is linked to also, if I am awesome, people will love me. If I am awesome, I will have money. If I am awesome, I will do cool things.
So a shift in focus could be then look for ways that people already love you. Look for ways that people already value you and see you as awesome and respect you. And look for ways that you love yourself. And I don't think people do that as much or enough, right? As a society.
Yeah, I would even say this. I would say, when did that individual decide that they weren't awesome already?
Maybe sometime in elementary school, kindergarten, they were made fun of. Something was said to them. A teacher said something like, hey, you're not good enough. Parents said, hey, I knew you weren't smart. Dummy, right? Even with good intentions, parents have said things like that.
Yeah, and that becomes fact that governs the subconscious.
Especially during the age of 0 to 8, 7, 8.
So vulnerable in that age to those kind of things.
So vulnerable.
So my wife and I, we just welcomed a new baby in the family.
Congratulations again. Yes.
Thank you. And there's a concept that
your fifth baby.
Fifth baby.
We got to tell the audience.
That's right. Number 5.
Yeah, that's what's up. Okay.
We're taking over the world.
Hey, and guess what? The truth of this is, and I'm going to say this is the truth, that a lot of people are starting to see, and look, this is my version of the truth. A lot of people are starting to see that having more children actually is a sign of wealth. That is the new definition of wealth. Because at the end of the day, money isn't going anywhere with these people as they age. I mean, sure, like you can increase, decrease. I mean, people who are listening to this abundantly will increase, of course, right? That being said, that relationship will grow at an exponential rate. And that the value of that relationship, I mean, I know some people may have their reality as not so great in terms of relationships in the past, but that doesn't mean relationships of the future have to be that way. So what I'm seeing here is, I mean, and here's another thing, I'll be more straight up. I see a lot of good people on this earth not having kids. There's zero judgment. Like, people do what they want, right? Total respect and love for them. The only thing is, anytime I have a chance to talk to them, I'm like, hey, if you have an opportunity to have children, I think you should, because to have almost like a replica of you, or more than one replica of you on this planet, I think that's a blessing.
Think about the programs that stop people from having kids.
Yeah, let's get into that for a minute, because this is going to be a touchy subject for a lot of people.
It's a touchy subject, for sure.
We should get into it.
Yeah, one of them is that getting pregnant is difficult.
Oh,
I know I went straight for the gut on that one.
That's good.
I went straight for it.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I think that people do have physiological needs that need to be addressed. Make sure you get good nutrition, eat clean food.
Alcohol is a
that
killer.
is so important.
Alcohol is a killer for sperm and egg, lifespans and quality and all of and more, right?
I mean, I'll say this. If someone is living that way where they're not taking care of themselves, a lot of times it's just built in a belief like that, in a fact. So then their behaviors follow suit with what they believe is factually true. And then they create that reality that they believe is true.
Yeah, a lot of people say getting pregnant is hard. And they also are saying that partly because, I mean, I'd love to hear from your perspective what you've heard and seen from some of the people that you've worked with. I've heard some things like age, right? And I'm not saying that's not valid. Of course, like physiological needs and wants. There are people out there that are able to get pregnant, and everybody's different. Look, right? That being said, the biggest question I have is it really because of age, or is it because of their mental programs?
Well, when you say age, that's a fascinating thing. So I live in Utah. Some numbers came out. The fertility rate in Utah dropped by 39%, which is wild because Utah traditionally has had large families.
Yeah.
So now there's less people having kids.
Wow.
And if you look at the age ranges, the most fertile age range moved from 22 to 29 to 29 to 35. So now women
Most
are
fertile
actually
meaning what?
older.
Meaning
they're
they're
having more kids per 1,000 women.
oh,
So between 29 and 35, more women are those women are the ones having kids now. So I actually think it's the younger age, that might have more of the limitations, because there's probably some scarcity programs like, oh, if I have kids now, then I can't finish school. If I don't finish school, then I won't have enough money to build the life that I want. If I don't have the money that I can't, then it'll be hard to raise kids. That chain of thought right there.
programs of scarcity.
Programs of scarcity. And those are huge. Or there's other programs that are like, I just want to keep my options open, and never really finding love. Because maybe this is both men and women. Women might say men are pigs, or men are just toxic, or something like that. And so they subconsciously avoid them, but they can't because they're biologically wired to still be attracted.
Yeah, it's strange. I never understood what toxic masculinity really means, because everybody seems to have a different definition, but they bond over that word. Or mansplaining. I'm like, I'm not really, and like, what does the woman do when there's a woman-splaining? Like, what is happening to the world with these random terms that have negative emotions tied to them?
Well, they're just feeling negative. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
And then they get the results of feeling negative. If you remember, going back to what I said is universal law, the positive states will lead to positive outcomes. So the negative states lead to negative outcomes. And I'll say this too. It's not just things about toxic masculinity. There's men that say women are difficult to deal with.
Oh yeah, like we have. There's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah. So it goes both ways, obviously.
Hey, I mean, I've met guys that are like, women are cheaters. I'm like,
Oh, yeah. It's like, why do you want to say that? That's terrible.
was your mom a cheater? Like, I legit have that thought, right? And then sometimes they're like, no. I mean, most of the times they're like, no. Then I'm like, how are all women cheaters then? If you're saying all women, that includes your mom, right? And it's not me being offensive, right? Maybe I am, but I'm not trying to be offensive. If someone says all women, right? So that model came from somewhere.
Yeah. And it can come from their experiences in childhood, can come from how their parents related, could come from TV,
Television programming.
come from friends, right? Those are beliefs that people pick up. Social media these days, right?
Oh, yeah.
You watch one video about that, and then you get 20 more that just get loaded up in the queue.
Yeah.
Talk about repeated exposure and programming.
You know, what I think is interesting is people perceive what they perceive as reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's not. Paradoxically, it is the reality they generate,
Mm-hmm.
but it is not a collective reality.
No. Yeah, it's definitely subjective. But that's a superpower too. So I'm going to go back what I was saying about my newborn.
Tell me.
There's a concept that people bring up. They want to feel like they deserve success, which presupposes they don't feel that way. Or they want to feel like they deserve love, which presupposes they don't feel that way. Now, I'll put it this way. When I see my newborn, and he was just born, and immediately he goes for milk, he didn't ask for permission. He didn't say, do I deserve this milk? Do I deserve to be held and loved by my mother? He didn't ask any of those questions. So a lot of times the problem is that you're even asking the question. It should not even be a concept. So if you're looking at it, it's like,
let's pause right there.
Yeah.
People need to hear that again. Can you please say that again?
Yeah. So the problem isn't whether or not you deserve something. The problem is that you're asking the question.
I don't think that most people are going to immediately, and hopefully our audience will, right, immediately begin to understand how significant that statement is. It's the presupposing of, I need to ask for permission. I need to ask for what I want. I need to ask for this. Presupposes they don't have it. They don't deserve it. They don't already have permission. A lot of people live that life.
So I could ask anyone, I could say, make a list, two-sided. Give me one list that says, why can't you be successful? And make another list that says, why can you be successful? And they could probably fill out that list with a bunch of items. The problem is the list. I would say, this is how I would respond. It's my identity. It's not because of anything. It's because it's how I operate. That's where people need to get at in their mental programs, right? You could do another one. It's like, let's say you set a big goal, $100 million collected in a year. You could say, why can't I? Why can I? All of those are limitations. Even on the can side, a lot of those could be limited in scope. Not necessarily negative in nature, but limited in scope. If you say, well, because that's who I am. I've already created 100 million in value. I'm just going to collect it.
And that right there is tied to the modern definitions of identity that have been passed around in social media, from what I brought up earlier, the toxic masculinity, to who knows whatever labels that are unkind and unnecessary and or frankly untrue that men give women and people give kids or the elderly, or that people give, people of all kinds, right? Like the labels comes with the identifying attributes that are limitations. Before we give these labels, we need to consider what are the attributes attached, and that most importantly, what labels are we giving ourselves?
Beautiful. Yeah, the identity programs are like the root programs. They're the ones that govern many other facts. So one of the fast ways to change your life is to change how the facts about your identity. And if you can change this quickly, it governs a bunch of other facts. So for example, like what I said, if I said, I am successful, that's how I operate, it would delete many other things that are not that. Anything that is not in that category would be gone. So things like success is hard for me, that would be deleted because it would
be ridiculous to hold two in the same place.
You can't.
And the power of I am successful, if the power is dialed all the way up, this other thing ceases to exist.
So I mean, this is why people come to Upgrade and talk to someone like me to get reprogrammed, because they've been working with this their whole life and struggling, not knowing why. They don't even understand why they're struggling. I mean, there's people that have so much money, yet they're still struggling.
They're struggling with peace, stress, and conflict.
Even their goals.
Oh, yeah.
Not just fitness goals or love goals, but even monetary goals. They're struggling there. They don't know why. And this is where you look at the root programs of their identity and you can find out what codes they say are factually true about themselves. So everyone listening, right? Like if you write down some I am statements like I am this, I am that, I am this, I would also have you write I am not statements. I am not these things. And you can look right there. That's like a code of your identity. And then you can say, you can challenge that idea and be like, how does this create my outcomes? This set of code right here, who I am and who I'm not. How does this working together create all the circumstances that I experience?
I am is the most important statement that one can write. So important, especially when written in an altered state. Because if it's just written, right, it is still revealing, but you can begin to do installation of the programs if you're in an altered state. And we could talk about that later, but keep going, please.
Yeah, I am is biblical, right? That is what God said his name is. When Moses asked, he just wrote, I am.
If that's any hint of how a creator would identify,
Pay attention.
with a wild card, empty space behind, yeah, I think that people may be picking up what we're putting down.
It'll put you in an altered state immediately to think about that, for sure.
Yeah,
So,
it's a wild card. You can put whatever you want.
which then is really the next piece of mental programming is being in an altered state. You have to be able to access the code. Now, I know people that do affirmations, right? The affirmations, I mean, if you're in a really deep altered state, might work. But usually they don't because people don't know how to be in an altered state and maintain it and program it in. They also may have limitations that block that from being fact.
Ooh, and can I bring this up? So many people rely on only psychedelics to get into altered states. And look, I'm not saying that it's wrong or right and that it's not useful. I may or may not have or know people that have experimented with them, of course. That being said, I think that people should not be primarily reliant on other substances to get them into an altered state. And that includes alcohol even. That includes cannabis. That includes anything else that's legal, right? And anything that people are using. And there are so many ways to get into an altered state that does not rely on substances or psychedelics. And because our mind, our brain is actually basically a drug factory, right? It can take us into an altered state if we know the code, if we know how to get there. It is, and one of the primary reasons I may or may not have explored some of those things is to understand what's the difference between having psychedelic versus not having psychedelic. Now, I am going to say it is definitely like going to get, well, how would I put it? It's basically having someone open the door for you versus you opening the door for yourself. The effort depends on your skills, the effort it takes. So if you have more skills, opening that door is very easy. If you have less skills, opening that door requires, well, not just training, but a lot of practice. But over time, you can achieve the same, if not greater results because you are in charge. And I want to bring this up because, again, I have no positive or negative things to say about psychedelics or substances. What I am saying is it's just who opens the door, right? And being able to open the door gives us the ability to reprogram reality when we are able to get in. And look, I think that if people want to be a permanent psychedelic factory of their own, meaning legally producing that in their own mind, they should come to learn. They should learn how to do it.
Well, that's a nice thing about Upgrade. I personally have never dabbled in psychedelics, and I don't plan to in the future. The nice thing about Upgrade is that you don't have to, right? There's other places, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong or good or bad or anything. People can do it how they want to and what they want to explore. The point is that I'm an advocate of seeing the limits of my mind untampered and seeing how it can work and what it can access and letting those experiences unfold. Now, the nice thing about Upgrade is we can teach you how to get into altered states without any substances. So you can start learning how to do this in your own time and do it easily. And this is the key to shuffling around your programs as well.
You know, I think that people say, "Hey, how much is a session for psychedelic?" Right? When they go ask or whatever, like for some legal sessions that of course, professionals, that licensed professional or whoever they go to. Now, they ask that question, but then my question is, how nice would it be if you can enter that psychedelic state all the time, anytime, as many times as you want, the rest of your life? How much is that worth? Right? Because there's that trend going that, hey, psychedelic, and it's been going on for a while, but especially now, where many states, many countries are legalizing things, it's the trend of, oh, that entrepreneur's doing psychedelic and they had a breakthrough. I should do it too because I want a breakthrough.
See, it's challenging. It all depends on how prepared someone is for that anyway. Like there's CEOs in Silicon Valley that go do ayahuasca, and then after they come back, they quit their job completely. Even, you could talk about the ecology of that. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. I don't care. But there is a result right there, right? And some people are ready for that experience, some are not. And the thing I like about Upgrade is that it's not going to be too much at one time. It's going to be something that's paced at your ability and your level. And you can go deep if you want to. You can stay light if you want to. Most of the time, I found out that we can reshuffle these programs in a light trance. It doesn't even have to be that deep. Now, if they want deeper programming, we have sleep hypnosis tracks for that. We have things that can reprogram their mind while they're completely asleep. And that's an altered state people experience every night.
Here's what I will add to the psychedelic comment. And I want to say this because this is an opinion, right? This is not the official company opinion necessarily. This is just my personal opinion. And I think that, and this opinion is for educational purposes only, right? I don't think people should do it without actually vetting who the heck they're doing with, first off, because some are psychos, some are stupid, some don't know what they're doing, some have traumas, and I'm just saying it raw, right? Some people have trauma that they have never dealt with. They project on the participant when they experience a psychedelic session. So it becomes a disaster. So it's not surprising some high-power CEO or founder goes and do it, and then they, quote, found the meaning of life and that nothing matters, and then all of a sudden they want to quit their all physical attachment. And look, that might be an extreme one. Like many have great success, don't get me wrong. And I'll talk about the positive in a sec. The problem is the projection and the lack of training in linguistics. The lack of training on linguistics. And you can't blame the person that they go to because the person who's going needs to be able to vet them. But they have zero linguistic trainings. They don't understand the impact of the language that's being used on them. And they have no idea the impact that will have on their subconscious when they are in an altered state, as we've been talking about. In an altered state, they are highly reprogrammable. People change easily in an altered state, right? Change happens like that. So if they go to someone and takes them opens the door, right, to worlds beyond and including their mind, and then they say some crappy, unbelievably terrible things at them that they don't even have negative intentions for, but they just said it, right? The program does not have to have a negative intention. It can still have a negative effect, right? Like life is hard, or even the person facilitating could say you should quit without thinking the consequences. And this CEO is in an altered state, don't remember that, but then leaves thinking he should quit or she should quit.
So the big problem with this is that people don't know how to get their facts straight, you might say.
Yep.
Right? The people that are facilitating and also the people going out to those opportunities, right? They're not exactly sure of what they may not know what they intend to get out of it, for one. Some people are just not prepared. And then the practitioner, the person who's guiding it, may not be trained well enough, like you said, to help them get their facts straight.
They need to understand the language, the linguistics, and its impact on the person's neurology and their programs.
The ecology, the effect. Now, this is something that's super effective.
Can we go deeper on ecology a little bit?
Oh, yes.
What does ecology mean? Can you explain?
So let's put it this way. People have different areas of life that we like to put categories in, right? There's spirituality, there's business, there's family, there's fitness, right? Personal growth, personal development. These are all different categories that people engage in their life. And by making one decision in one area, it can impact different areas because they're not actually
Yes.
separate.
They're not separate. They're together.
They're together, but people perceive them as separate because they're like, oh, what I do at work doesn't impact my family. So they go to work and do something, but then it still impacts their family because they're not aware. So the ecology is understanding how one change here in career might have a ripple effect in family. It might have a ripple effect in health, and understanding the broad implications of that change of the fact. So it's really important to have people that also have their facts straight to be able to help them go through that process and to be like, I don't think we're going to make that change. That's not ecological. It doesn't help you in all areas of life. So for example, someone says, if I'm going to make money, I got to work hard and grind.
Yeah.
Work harder. And you hear people yell at people all the time in the personal development industry. They get their cortisol levels super high, their adrenaline super high, and that's a way of getting into an altered state. And then they're like, you're never going to succeed unless you knock more doors, unless you work harder. Then they install that fact.
They
into
do
the
that
person
in sports.
all the time.
They do that in school. They do that in everywhere, right?
But what happens to your health if that's your program?
Yeah.
What happens to your family life? So the implications of that ecology are more broad than people understand or care to think about.
Huge impacts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only their family relationships, but just like friends in general.
And if they apply that to their romantic relationship or childbearing.
Yeah, so I'll tell you this story. When my wife and I, we decided to use a birthing center, which means no epidural, right? Like she's on her own to deliver this baby. And
That's easy.
it is easy.
That's
right?
what the body's naturally built to do.
That's what it's built to do. Now, let me tell the story here because it's going to address that right there.
Oh, nice. Tell me.
So we're with midwives, and these midwives are great. One of them has been delivering babies for like
Now,
35
none
years.
of this is medical advice. This is for educational purposes. and
Educationally, just a
personal
story.
opinions.
Just a story.
Yeah.
Right? We decided to try something new. Midwives are great. I really liked them. And one of them's like a massage therapist.
Oh.
One of them is good at hypnosis. One of them has delivered many babies all the time. I'm like, this is a good combination of people to help. And my wife, she's in the middle of intense contractions, but they're helping her.
Yeah.
And she turns around and looks at me and she's like, that contraction kind of felt good. And I saw what happened. She was confused for a moment. This is the flickering between programs right here. Yeah?
Yeah.
So she brought up, she said, is it wrong for me to have this be easy? Does it disappoint my mother and my grandmother and everyone before? Notice the programs are flickering right here. And I responded and I said, you should be asking yourself why you never thought it was easy. How did it become hard in the first place? It should be easy. Now, I will say this. At the very end, she still got to push the baby out, and that's an experience in its own. But it's also, I mean, I hear from women, psychedelics don't even compare to that at times. So by going through that experience, she found out that actually maybe giving birth to a child could even be pleasurable. Interesting.
Why that's not a reality in the first place is so strange. And why that somehow gets programmed into the minds, that causes me to ask the question, how do we follow the money on that?
Yeah, I'm sure it started in the 50s when the doctors took over the birthing area. Yeah, we won't get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously. So getting back to programs, right? The reality someone experiences is based on what they believe is factually true about reality. Now, I'll tell this story because this was really interesting. I was helping this person reprogram his mind. And he had, just a wild experience,
And we're all safe and
We're all
healthy and
safe and
free.
healthy. We're all free. Yeah, safe and healthy and free. And he had an experience where he had basically a psychedelic experience on a boat because he had a reaction to a drink he had. So it wasn't even intentional. And his kids were on the boat, and he ended up driving the boat up on the shore, and the police came and took him away and threw him into a mental institution. And they didn't even check what the issue was. So he was in a mental institution for like a month while they figured this out. In the meantime, his 3 ex-wives were taking
He had
custody.
3 ex-wives?
3 ex-wives. The story's
Wow.
out there.
Okay,
right?
keep going.
So he had 3 ex-wives, and they all gained custody. They were trying to gain custody of the daughters. They found an opportunity.
Just so you guys know, we train a lot of people, so I don't know everyone's story, right? So please keep going.
And so in this circumstance, he's like, I'm in this circumstance. Can you help me change my reality, right? So I'm helping him. The issue is that he keeps getting arrested. He got arrested 3 more times. And I'm like sitting here, I'm like, is this, like, are you being honest with me about these? He's like, yeah, I totally am. Like, I have these no contact orders with my ex-wives, and they're setting me up. One time he said, one of my ex-wives sent me a picture of my daughter on her birthday. And I responded and I said, wow, thank you for sending that to me. Tell her happy birthday for me. Because he wasn't able to see her for months. And then she called the police because he responded. And then he got arrested. So stuff like this happened 3 times.
So he got tricked into it.
Tricked into it.
How did he create a reality in which he got tricked into taking away his own freedom?
Well, I think the reality got created even before the 3 ex-wives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him this question. I said, first of all, hey, I'm going to tell you this. It's not the nicest thing I can say, but it's true and you need to hear it. I said, you get 100% of what you want all the time. And he's like, yeah, that wasn't nice. And I'm like, but if you can follow that train of thought, I know we can make it out of this. He's like, okay. So I said, all right, my question is, why do you want to be arrested? Right? If he's getting 100% of what he wants all the time, why does he want to be arrested? And he's like, I don't want to be arrested. This is ridiculous. I've been arrested 3 times. I'm being framed. And I'm like, no. Remember, 1,000% responsibility. It's your ability to respond to your circumstances and get the outcome you want. So stay with me here in the conversation. This is a conversation that people aren't going to have with each other, but it can only happen in a mental reprogramming. And I said, okay, now let's look at it a little deeper. I asked him a series of questions, probably 30, 40 questions deep. He comes up with an answer, and he had forgotten where we started. He says, my life is a prison, and I can't escape.
Oh. Ooh. If there's a terrible program that I've heard, that is definitely one. Wow.
Yeah.
What happened next?
So we used our tools that we do an upgrade, and we removed it. So the next week, I spoke to him again. He's like, I have really good news. I'm like, great. It's been a while. Tell me the good news, right? He says, my ankle monitor is removed, and I found a job that's going to pay me double. So he got hired at a job that doubled his pay, and which was super important because he had huge legal fees, battling the custody battles and other legal fees that were going on. Now, recently I've seen, finally on social media, he has some pictures with his daughters. So I know he's reunited with them. Huge deal.
Reality can be reprogrammed, can it? That's a pretty extreme story, isn't it?
Well, think about it. Most people would be like, I'm screwed forever. They would say that because they don't know how to navigate it. The the reality can change.
They don't know there's a relationship between their internal mental programs and the so-called external reality.
Yeah.
They don't know how connected they are, and how when one changes, the other is entangled.
So I'll say this as we're wrapping it up. There's a difference between mental program, beliefs, and doubts. So let's put it this way. Mental program is a fact. It's not a belief. This is something that you know is absolutely true. For him, his life being a prison he couldn't escape was absolutely true. And I asked him, I said, how true is that for you? He's like, 100%. It's true. That's a program. And so a belief, though, is, I want you to think of it like a tool to install a program. Right? Now, kids at a young age, they don't need much belief to install a program. A lot of times it can just be imprinted on them. When you're an adult, you have different beliefs that are going around. And this is why there's so much media, right? To sway people's opinions one way or another. Because if they can sway it, they get people believing something's factually true, then, they may vote for someone and they may buy a certain product or something like that. Beliefs are the tool. Think of it like a nail gun that's constructing your programs. Doubts are like a crowbar. Doubts will release a program. So for those of you that are listening, if you're saying, how do I work with my programs? How do I change them even on my own? I'm like, well, you could start there. You could start saying, what do I want to believe to be true? And then you could say, you look at that list. Who am I and who am I not? You could see limitations on that list, and you can start doubting your limitations. This is what people don't do. They think doubt is a bad thing. Doubt is a magical tool.
It's amazing
when you apply it correctly. So if I love it when people say this. They're like, this is going to be really hard. And I say, I doubt it. Right? Or I'm not good at sales. And I say, I doubt it. I'm not going to make a lot of money. I doubt it. You actually should doubt more people than you think. Doubt the things that come out of their minds and out of their mouth, right? They're just going to say stuff. And it's actually such a nicer way than being like, when did you decide that you created that? Or that's so dumb that you said that. Don't say that to people. When they say a limitation, just say, I doubt it. So much nicer.
How easy is that to spread?
So easy.
Imagine every one of you who are listening, watching, sharing this episode to those who you want to help understand that their reality is not solid, right? When they tell you bad news, when they tell you some things aren't going the way they want, or something that's truly terrible, or something that's frankly extremely inconvenient, maybe in business or relationship, I doubt it. But doing it in obviously contextually appropriate way, right? But also perhaps sharing this episode so that they can begin to see the deeper understanding. See, we built these episodes so that you can share them and actually provide value for people so they can upgrade their lives. We've known that much of the not only personal development and consulting and educational industries, much of them is that, and we don't actually identify as personal development companies. We're basically a programming company, a technology company. A lot of the personal development companies and educational companies, what they do is they gate the knowledge. Now, we've gated some of that knowledge for a long time too. But the intention of the brokers of secrets, as set in the name, is to disclose so that you can share, you can use them easily. The tools need to be easy. The biggest thing that allows the previous guru model of personal development to sustain themselves is basically because they gate the knowledge, and they also teach in such a way that's so complex, you can't repeat it. You can't just go and do it on your own, right? Our intention is, how can you do it on your own? And if you hire us, it's for implementation, right? It's for expertise and mastery. But we want you to be able to use it just from the podcast alone. Now, of course, certain things consult with a licensed professional, right? Any medical advice, financial advice, those go for a truly licensed professional. Psychological advice, we're just here as a technology company talking about the technology that depicts the relationship between our mind and our reality. And if you can reprogram our minds, your mind, you can reprogram your reality. We'll see you in the next episode where we're going to share with you a different story that may excite you greatly. And that story has to do with how a reprogramming can cause someone to go from, well, we'll just tell you in the next episode. Yes. See you soon.